Christine, thank you. This webinar will be recorded, and so it will be available for playback. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Workplace Charging, featuring clean cities and communities. And I'm Julie Bond, and I serve as the program manager for Best Workplaces for Commuters. We're located here in Tampa, Florida, on the campus of the University of South Florida. I'll serve as your host and moderator today. We have three insightful speakers. Brianna Bennett is with Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant, Barry Carr with Clean Communities of Central New York, and Rori Kirkpatrick with EVNoire. And I will introduce the three of them in just a minute. Okay, a look at today's agenda. First, I'll tell you just a little bit about best workplaces for commuters. Then I'll talk to you about eval. I'll introduce each of the speakers, and then I'll turn the time over to them. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. We love to have questions come in, so please type your question in the Q&A box, and we'll answer all the questions at the end. Since we have three speakers, if you could just put at the beginning of your question which speaker that question is for, that will be helpful, so we direct it to the correct person. And you can also chat with others in the chat. So a little bit about best workplaces for commuters. We are partnering with eval, and we are located again at the University of South Florida. We offer membership to workplaces, sites, universities, and colleges. And we also have a great group of partners. So if you're interested in looking more at best workplaces for commuters, please let us know. Okay, and so we are partnering with Forth to promote the eval program, and there's a QR code you can scan to learn more about the eval program. If you're interested, you're going to hear about it from our speakers today also. Forth's mission is to electrify transportation by bringing people together to create solutions that reduce pollution and barriers to access. So it really is a great partnership between Best Workplaces and Forth. And we're putting on a whole series of webinars during August and September. So we hope you'll join us for other webinars too. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce our three speakers. I'll introduce them now and then turn the time over to Brianna, and then she will turn the time over to Barry and then Rori. So Brianna Bennett is the Sustainability Coordinator for the Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant, and she's been with the company for about 2.5 years. Her primary responsibilities include coordinating energy projects, such as the installation of EV chargers, administering communications, and managing rebate programs. She recently graduated with a Sustainability Master's from Harvard Extension School. She previously studied also at Merrimack College to attain a bachelor's degree in Environmental Sustainability Studies and Political Science. So welcome, Brianna. Next, Barry Carr has spent his career in the advanced transportation world, working with major utilities and fleets to develop alternative fuel infrastructure. And that includes EV level 2 charging, natural gas, renewable natural gas, hydrogen, and DC fast charge systems. For the last 15 years, Barry volunteered as the executive director for Clean Communities of Central New York, the U.S. Department of Energy's Clean Cities Coalition, hosted by Syracuse University. He currently serves on both the federal and state government advocacy committees, the Avangrid Community Advisory Board, the Center State CEO Government Relations Committee, and is the co-chair of the Northeast Gas Association. So welcome, Barry. And then we also have Rori Kirkpatrick with us today, and she is the Electric Vehicle Innovation Strategy Implementation Specialist at EVNoire, an award-winning tech consultancy working on electric, connected, shared, and autonomous vehicle solutions. Rori uses her experience in transportation planning, program management, and sustainable solutions to deliver impactful results driven by data and foster equitable transportation policy recommendations and programs. Wow, so we have a really great panel for you. And now I'm just going to turn the time over to Brianna for the presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be on here representing the Hingham Light Plant. HMLP was founded in 1893 by the ratepayers of Hingham when they voted to take control of their electric company. So we're locally owned and we're locally controlled by a 3-person light board that sets the policy, appoints the general manager, and sets the rates. So because we're by and for the community, that led our decision to look into public charging stations initially. So we've installed charging stations across Hingham at 5 different locations. There's a total of 10 level 2 ports, and we have 3 level 3 stations. And then we decided to practice what we preach and install workplace charging stations here to enable employees to electrify their vehicles and to also electrify our fleet vehicles. Next slide, please. So some of the decision factors that went into that, our town of Hingham has a goal to be net zero by 2040. They came out with a climate action plan last year that talks about the goal and the emissions from transportation, which it's estimated that about 23% of the emissions in our town come from transportation. Now, in terms of wanting people to go to that electric source and get off of fossil fuels, we also recognize that as the light plant, we're on a path to become carbon free by 2050 in alignment with the state of Massachusetts goals. And then we also recognize that electrification has to be done responsibly. So we have tried to be a leader in this space with our customers and offering incentives because we want them to be charging any electric vehicle off peak. And that mainly means in the evening hours when nobody's using electricity. So that maximizes our opportunity to put money back into the system for ratepayers and avoid oversaturating the grid during hours when everybody's flipping those ovens on to cook dinner, or they're turning on their dryers and cleaning laundry. And then it's minimizing that risk and that potential cost that it could be for everyone to be charging at the same time. And we wanted to bring benefits to our community. So EV charging is known to attract people to shop at the local businesses while they're waiting to charge up. We were hoping it would help reduce local air pollution and improve air quality. And then we just really wanted to support access to electric options for all of our residents. This extends to our employees. As the electric company, we have the unique perspective where we want employees to feel comfortable buying our product. Essentially, we're selling electricity and we want all residents to have access to that product. And so that went into the factor of installing stations around the community and here at the light plant as well. Next slide, please. Our EV program that we run here includes a couple of different aspects. So we have Hingham Drives Electric, which is an outreach program that we work with Energy New England on. Energy New England is this consortium that works with a bunch of different light plants in Massachusetts, and they run Hingham Drives Electric for us to help customers get the resources they need to choose electric. So we have a drive and save wizard tool that people can plug in their information and they can get a bunch of different options to compare on what EVs might actually fit their lifestyle the most. And then we have EV specialists through that program that can give them guidance on the rebates and charging and things like that. We also work with Next Zero, which is a company that offers programs for efficiency and electrification incentives. So we just started a demand response program with them, thinking about that off-peak charging of EVs that I mentioned before. And we do want to be at the forefront of having people charge during the hours when it makes the most sense. So those are some of the programs that we were already running with residents, and that thinking about how we encourage residents to do that encouraged our decision to get the charging stations in place. Next slide, please. Our EV chargers installation timeline began in 2021 when the state of Massachusetts released a grant program. It was called Mass EVIP. So we started looking into that grant and we had initially applied. It took a while to get the grant on the first go around because they were still setting it up and figuring out how things were going to work. But since then, it only takes a couple of months once we apply to get approvals. So we installed our first public level 2 stations in 2022, around October. And then 1 year later, we installed our public level 3 stations. And then in January of 2024 is when we installed our workplace stations that we have now here. We did have to request extensions on all of these different projects because things come up, and the state was very accommodating. It's just important to request your extensions early, and so that they have plenty of notice if you might need one. But ideally, the project timeline was meant to be within 6 months. And then once you complete the project, you can request your funds, which is what we've done. So we have completed all of our existing projects at this point. And then on the next slide is our experience and lessons learned from this process. We definitely recommend working in collaboration with some sort of education and outreach program. It was very helpful to have Hingham Drives Electric already out there with the community, talking to residents and figuring out what they're thinking about when it comes to EVs and charging. And so we got a good usage on the stations right off the bat. But we also used them to help build our own team's capacity when it came to thinking about charging stations. Before we did this process, I think our understanding was very limited. And so having experts that were willing to help us and that focused on education was very helpful. They also came into the light plant to do presentations with us because we wanted to better understand EVs and what it takes to charge a vehicle and just different things so we could explain it to customers. And then finding the right specialists to review the design specs once you have a project you want to move forward with is very important. We found that there were things we had to go back for after we had thought we completed the installation and we needed to revise and fix things. And every time we learned something new. So have somebody review it to make sure it's ADA compliant, that you're within the zoning requirements, that you have the licenses you need. Aesthetics came up with one of our projects. We needed to install some vegetation around one of the stations to blend in with the local scenery. And then making sure if this is a requirement for a grant you're participating in, or if you're just focused on energy efficiency, whether the stations you're installing are Energy Star certified. That became a factor with some of our later installations. It was also important to pre-plan and integrate this project with other ones that were occurring. So we were planning to install a solar canopy at our site. You can see it in the picture in the middle here. And so we waited until that project was ready to go forward so that we weren't digging twice in the parking lot. We installed the conduit. And now we have charging stations at either end of that canopy. We also have them in the back parking lot at HMLP and in our garage just to make sure we have the capacity for fleet electrification. And then overall, I think the charging stations really fit into our organization's mission and values. And I think that starting from that point was really important when it comes to getting buy-in from not only the employees here as we were doing the project, but the overall community that we're responsible to answer to. So that's my presentation. I will toss it over to Barry.
Thank you, Brianna. I learned a lot about Hingham, and I asked a couple of questions too that we'll take a look at later. I'm Barry Carr. I'm based in Syracuse, New York. I'm the director of one of the 6 DOE Clean Communities and Cities organizations in New York State. And we are also one of 75 organizations nationwide. The Clean Cities program is 31 years old, so it's a long-term program that has been funded quite well and funded not so well in other years by the U.S. Department of Energy. What I'm going to do is talk to you very briefly on a slide about all of our active projects and then talk specifically about workplace charging. The other things to know there is that's our facility. That's where we are located. It's called the Syracuse Center of Excellence. It is one of 6 federally and state funded projects for different high-tech applications. Ours is a center of excellence for energy and the environment. So there's a lot of testing that goes on there of advanced heat pumps, solar, wind, geothermal, all sorts of things going on at our facility. And the bottom is a picture of our parking lot. And right now, 2 of our level 2 chargers are fed by solar panels that were part of the original design of the building. Next slide, please. These are the programs that we are active on right now. The first is through NYSERDA. NYSERDA stands for New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. NYSERDA functions as our state energy office, and we have a contract with them to do outreach and witness scrappage events for a truck voucher incentive program and a bus voucher incentive program. So the state has put mandates on all public fleets and all school districts that they need to be completely zero emission by 2035. And on the side of the school districts, they need to begin buying electric school buses by 2027, which is not very far away. So right now there's a lot of incentives for them to move quicker rather than slower. The next project is also funded by NYSERDA. It is a New York State Clean Transportation Prize. This is a $100 million project. We manage 3 of the 10 finalists. One is the New York MTA, which is deploying hydrogen fuel cell buses down in the Bronx. One is a rideshare company called Dollaride in Brooklyn that is electrifying their fleet. And the third is TCAT. That is the transit agency based in Ithaca, New York, that is beginning to offer low-cost EV shuttle service to pick up people in rural areas and bring them to existing bus stops, existing rideshare stops, or an existing bike share project. We also lead the outreach for the Northeast Freight Corridor charging plan. In that case, that is led by our local utility, National Grid. We are examining 134 sites in 9 states that will potentially be locations for medium and heavy duty charging hubs. We provide outreach statewide for a national program called Drive Electric USA. That's a 3-year program to provide support and education and outreach on consumer electric vehicles, which includes workplace charging, which is good. We are under contract to NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab, to work on forming an alliance with the 6 Clean Cities coalitions. So if all goes to plan, there will be a single point of contact. So there'll be a New York State alliance with 6 regional offices, which will be located in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, where we are, Albany, New York City, and Long Island. We're a participant in a 4th funded DOE project that we called Each Expanding Access to Charging at Home. That is focused on multi-unit dwellings, so apartment buildings, condos, homeowners association, in an effort to get more level 2 charging and parking spots electrified. We work closely with Syracuse University, who we are a partner of, with a long-term study for both workplace charging within the city of Syracuse, within Syracuse University, and with some students through a project called Capstone. So I think a lot of different universities around the country have capstone requirements. It's an independent study project. And I had the pleasure working closely with 3 students and the City of Syracuse Department of Public Works to come up with a charging plan for them focused on workplace charging. And then we have a NREL funded study for the city of Ithaca to create a clean transportation plan for them that is just south of us in Syracuse. Ithaca is best known as the location of Cornell University and Ithaca College. And then finally, we're involved in Transportation Energy Partners, which is a national organization that consists of about 50 of the 75 Clean Cities coalitions. Next slide, please. The workplace charging project that we've been involved with Syracuse University has a long history. So it actually began back in 2010 with some funding from, if any of you remember, ARA, the American Resource and Recovery Act. This was during the Obama administration that provided a lot of funding for EV infrastructure throughout the country. And we partnered with the city of Syracuse, Syracuse University, and a number of other local businesses to install 68 level 2 chargers. About half of those are still up and operating. The other half have been upgraded at this point. Through Syracuse University and our partnership and our location at the Center of Excellence, we started an outreach program back in 2014. So we're in the 10th year of our partnership for that. And part of that partnership is hosting events at our site because it's a perfect place for a ride and drive. It has access to charging. And for the first 8 years of the project, the workplace charging was free. So it was super popular. We began charging for it 2 years ago, but it's a pretty nominal fee. It's 20 cents a kilowatt hour. And those of you who are undergoing charging projects now, I'm happy to discuss later on more specifics on that. We kind of picked up the pace with Syracuse University in 2020 with the Charge New York 1.0 project. That provided some funding through NYSERDA to defray about 80% of the cost of putting in workplace charging. We're now part of Charge New York 2.0, doing outreach and ride and drive events. Got one coming up this Saturday, just outside of Utica, New York. There's not as much funding, but it still pays for about 70% of the cost between what's available through NYSERDA, what's available through federal tax credits, and we also have New York State tax credits on electric vehicle infrastructure. I mentioned a little earlier about the Capstone project that was done in 2023 last year. That involved working with 3 engineering students at Syracuse University, along with the city of Syracuse DPW, and I forgot to mention earlier the city of Syracuse sustainability manager. And then moving forward, we got involved with Force Eval program. We got ourselves certified at our own facility with our own small fleet of only a few electric vehicles. But we're very happy with it, and we're happy to have the recognition and appreciate working on things like this. And then finally, we've had a couple of preliminary meetings with Syracuse University to expand the access to workplace charging, again, primarily for the workers. Syracuse University is a major employee in our area. They have multiple parking lots. They actually have an additional state university that's co-located at the same site. And I'm going to guess we're going to have about 50 more chargers go in. Plus, we're talking about a separate program for the students because lots and lots of students get electric vehicles for graduation presents. And they come up here and their parents are very concerned that they have a place to charge them. Next slide, please. This is my favorite slide, and I always like to talk about challenges. I think we can all learn a lot by making mistakes. I've been doing this for a little over 30 years in this industry, and I like to think a lot of my value is by the fact that I've done some things wrong. And so we know how sometimes we learn to do things right by doing them wrong first. We've maintained a very close relationship with Syracuse University. We're called a collaborative partner, even though we do pay rent at our facility. It's a very nominal amount for the amount of collaboration that we get. The participants in all the stuff we do, we share everything. You know, we're really, really open. We are a small nonprofit. We are a 4-person organization. So we rely upon our workplace. And so we're always happy to promote other projects that are going on, especially ones that are related to clean transportation. We continuously have changes in leadership at our facility, the management of the facility itself. The university's had some changes and they have a fairly new chancellor. And also, we constantly have new programs going on, whether they're federal programs or state programs or utility programs. So in our area, our stakeholders in central New York, where we are served by either National Grid or EVNoire, which does business where we are as New York State Electric and Gas. So they're the utility down in the southern tier of New York. So those would be cities like Ithaca and Cortland and Binghamton, New York. And finally, I'd like to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I see there is a question for me. I'm going to answer. I'm going to turn this over to Rori for now, but I'm going to answer the question in the Q&A part. And then I look forward to any other questions or comments you may have after the next presentation. So I'd like to turn it over to Rori now. Thanks.
Thank you, Barry. And yeah, I'll get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Rori Kirkpatrick, and I am with EVNoire, and I'm here to talk to you today about two DOE-funded programs, Charge at Work and eVal. For our presentation, we plan on covering what EVNoire is and what we do. We'll talk about workplace charging and the Charge at Work program and the eVal program. And the way we think about these two programs is they're very complementary, where Charge at Work is the back-end planning and technical assistance, really there to uplift and build the foundation for your program. And eVal is there to recognize those efforts through a certification process. And we want to get to a place where installing workplace charging is easy. Although we can't guarantee it's a very simple process, we have technical expertise and tools to help you navigate making the right decisions. And we'll also have time at the end for questions. So we can go on to the next slide. So first, we plan on talking about Charge at Work, and then we will have time for questions. We'll talk about the need and what the program is and what the project builder is. So to get started, EVNoire is a technology-focused mobility consulting group specializing in electric connected, shared, and autonomous mobility solutions. EVNoire's work centers on electrification best practices, electrification diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our work involves working with auto manufacturers, charging network companies, the 25 largest cities, transit authorities, and more. And our team consists of planners and policy professionals, community engagement specialists, and researchers, and more. So we're a multifaceted team over here. And first, we'll be talking about the Charge at Work program. So we can move on to the next slide. Charge at Work is a national DOE-funded program in partnership with CalSTART. And here we're really just trying to express the need of EVs, and EVs are on the rise. Forecasts for electric vehicle sales in the United States say that EVs will reach 40 to 50% of total passenger car sales by 2030. And these aren't just projections. We are seeing proof of these growth estimates today. The total number of battery electric car registrations through Q3 of 2023 amounted to around 850,000, which is 61% more than a year ago. And so EVs are now about 7.4% of the total US vehicle markup, which is up from 5.2% from the same time in 2022. Next slide. And we are seeing the need that American drivers do want EVs for a variety of reasons. However, climate is a big component of that. The clean air consumer pocketbook benefits are well documented. And just for some examples, EVs contribute to cleaner air, greater local energy independence, lower fuel and maintenance costs, and stronger, more technical advance and competitive economies, and more. With average commutes in the US less than 30 miles per day, we are seeing over 4 million EVs in the US. So there is definitely a need, and drivers are looking to purchase and drive more EVs. Next slide. So currently multiple polls show that 74% of current EV owners express strong interest in workplace charging. And at the same time, 60% of EV drivers need chargers at their work because either they have long commutes or no access to at-home charging. And this may be because people live in apartments, or maybe people just don't have access to capital to install their own home charging solution. So workplace charging can really help bridge that gap between people who want EVs and those needing a place to charge it. So when we're thinking about where people can charge, workplaces are the second most likely location for EVs. All right. So there are a variety of reasons why employees are making the switch to EVs. To name a few, people can save money on car expenses, support climate action efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and engage in incentives such as commuter incentives or tax incentives. When workplaces respond to this increasing demand for EVs by adopting workplace EV charging, they can see many benefits, including happier employees who want to stay with their company, and you'll see a smaller company carbon footprint. And you can also see companies that are leading with sustainability and conservation. They can have that reputation of having smart, community-driven leadership. So this is a Justice 40 map that shows communities that are determined to be that are traditionally excluded from energy and climate equity. They're usually late to be able to adopt technological development and innovation. And according to a 2022 study, 43% of Americans lack access to public EV charging infrastructure. And this means that they do not have access to a public charging station within a 10-mile radius of their home. And the lack of charging infrastructure is an even larger problem for lower income and minority households. Disadvantaged communities are often located in areas with fewer charging stations, making it difficult for residents to adopt electric vehicles. So deploying EV charging at workplaces can really help address this problem by providing accessible charging options for employees. Next slide. So getting into what Charge at Work is and what we can do now that we have some of that context and background, we can help with a variety of ways. The way we think about Charge at Work is it's a sort of two-pronged approach where we offer technical assistance and education and outreach. So some of the components of what Charge at Work can do is we can walk you through creating a workplace charging plan using our Project Builder tool and resource center. The program offers a free site assessment where someone can come out to your site, assess your workplace charging needs, and give you a perspective on what to expect, any recommendations. And then what we can also do is inform you and help you research incentives or benefits for your workplace EV charging, like local, state, and federal grants or rebates. And then we can also provide technical assistance. So we can help answer in-depth questions and provide guidance for using the Project Builder and assisting you with your overall installation plan. We can help answer questions such as what kind of chargers do you need? What installation partners should you use? Those types of things, we can help you walk through that. And just a distinction we like to make is that the Charge at Work program is focused on workplace charging solutions designed for use by workers, so not fleet solutions. We define workplace charging as powering your commute to and from work. And another thing that we like to talk about is that chargers that we most often talk about in these situations will be level 2 chargers. Although, you know, there are other options out there. Workplace charging solutions are generally level 2 chargers. Next slide. So a little bit about the Resource Center and Project Builder. You can go to the Charge at Work website you can sign up for updates. You can sign a Charge at Work pledge, which is a non-binding pledge that shows your dedication to workplace charging. And with that, you'll be able to get access to our resource center. Ultimately, our goal is to spur greater EV adoption by enhancing driver confidence and charger availability. We hope to expand access to electric mobility in disadvantaged communities and create a self-sustaining market for workplace charging. Next slide. So if you do intend on building out a workplace charging program, you can use our tool that we have available online for free. You can put in your project requirements, such as your workplace type, how many employees you have, and then you'll get a detailed breakout of everything that you would need in order to implement your workplace charging program. So within the project builder, like I said, you're able to enter specific parameters such as employer type, how many chargers you want. And then with this breakout, you'll see all different kinds of information you'll need to start implementing your program. For example, you can see a cost breakout. You can see a project planner guide and timeline. And then you can also see charging impacts and energy costs. So this is just a screenshot of what the project planner looks like. You can see you have your project status, you have a timeline, you can see sort of where you're at in that process, and then also take a look at more detailed project details such as like your cost and charger types. And then you can also see access to a variety of resources that are available to you, again, such as identifying local tax incentives within your area, depending on where your workplace is. Next slide. So the cost worksheet, which is also in the project builder, allows you to forecast energy costs, charger installations, and growth when planning to continue to grow as an employer or add more chargers. And as I said earlier, just to reiterate, we also have a tool where you can identify local tax incentives that are available to you where your workplace is located. So this is just another screenshot of the project planner, where here you can see a detailed timeline and document repository where you can see step-by-step what's required from your site visit all the way through to your installation. You can use the project builder as a place to upload all your required documentation so you have easy access to necessary files and all your project information. So what you can do right now, if you are interested, is you can sign up for project updates going to the chargeatwork.org website. You can log on to the project builder. You can see a sample project, or you can start playing around and building your own. You can also request a free site assessment where someone can come out to your site and give you some perspective, answer some more detailed on-the-ground questions. And then again, you can also sign the Charge at Work pledge. And taking the pledge is just a great way to symbolize your support for workplace charging and your commitment to sustainability at the workplace, also showing that you're a local leader. And let's see. Okay, so for employer engagement, as we move forward with the Charge at Work program, we want to work with you to make workplace charging a reality across the country. We would love to collaborate with you to announce new chargers at your work sites, announce new incentives, help you hold an EV ride and drive, and share ideas and resources. So again, you can sign the Charge at Work pledge, you can go on the project builder, and again, we are available. Myself and my colleague Brandon are available to help answer any questions as you move forward with planning your workplace charging program. So we can take some questions now regarding the Charge at Work program before we jump into the eval program. Let's see if we have any. Let's see. So we have, if an employer wants to install EV charging at their workplace, does your project builder tool help with campaigns for employees to adopt EV, be aware of EV, etc.? Yeah, so the project builder tool itself has access to other resources, but what we can also offer, Brandon and I, and also some folks on the CalStart team, we can help provide employer guides and employee guides. The Charge at Work website also has some other available resources to you, just things to think about when setting up your program, and ideas for campaigns. And we were also happy to help meet with you and help brainstorm that too. So we're really available to meet anytime to help support that effort. Another question I see, any recommendations or resources for employers to share with their employees to help employees purchase an EV? We have some EV users, but want to make sure if we invest in a system, it gets used and has the environmental impact we're aiming for. Yeah, so again, I would definitely recommend checking out the Charge at Work website. We are working on additional guides. So we understand that from the employee perspective versus the employer perspective, the approach might be different when trying to invest in a workplace charging program and also trying to encourage your employees to buy into purchasing an EV. So there are resources that are available on the Charge at Work website. So I would definitely recommend that. And again, we're also happy to help meet and go through more specific questions if there are more detailed concerns, and we can help narrow in on that. All right. I see, can you explain the ride and drive events a bit more? Yeah, sure. So one effort that we have with the Charge at Work program is education and outreach. And so as a way to promote EVs and help answer any questions or reduce barriers between the unknown with EVs and questions or concerns people might have, we really want to get people in the vehicle to understand and to see what it's like to have that driver experience. So we've been able to host some EV ride and drives and really be there as a source of answering any questions, giving people that hands-on experience, and then also gaining interest in workplace charging. So we can host one at your work site. And that's another option to encourage employers to be more interested in EVs and getting more interest in the program itself. All right, so in the interest of time, I will move on to the next program. We're here to talk about EVAL, which is Electric Vehicle Adoption Leadership. And we also call it EVAL. And again, the way we think about these programs together is Charge at Work provides the back-end planning and technical assistance, and then EVAL is the program that recognizes employers for their efforts. And this program is brought to you by Fourth. Fourth is a nonprofit organization based in Portland, Oregon, and their mission is to electrify transportation by bringing people together to create solutions that reduce pollution and barriers to access. So electric vehicle adoption in the US in 2023, a record 1.4 million electric vehicles were sold in the US, approximately a 50% increase from the prior year. Next slide. So the National Renewable Energy Lab estimates that by 2030, there will be 33 million EVs on the road and 28 million EV charging ports will be needed to support them. The majority of charging will be at home and work, with the public network for opportunity charging and less common long trips. Of the 28 million charging ports, 25.7 million are expected to be private level 1 and level 2 chargers at single family homes. Additionally, there will be an estimated 2.1 million public and private level 2 chargers at multifamily homes, workplaces, stores, restaurants, and hotels. Estimates show that around 1% of DC fast charging ports would be needed at public charging stations, primarily to support those with no access to consistent off-street parking, as well as for long distance travel. Next slide. 20% of Americans, and even higher percentage of low and moderate income drivers live in buildings that do not have access to off-street parking to charge an EV, which means 30% of Americans don't have access to home or workplace charging that they may need in the future. And taking a look at why workplace charging is good for the environment, 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions are generated by the transportation sector. So it's a huge portion of our greenhouse gas emissions, and definitely something to be thinking about and investing in. On average, 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide are produced by just one single passenger vehicle per year. So it's a huge impact it can make by transitioning to an electric vehicle. And thinking about why workplace charging is good for employers. Again, we think about these, they are definitely connected, but they have different approaches. So for employers, they can improve their employee retention and recruitment, align and enhance company values, support ESG reporting by lowering their Scope 3 emissions. And then on the employee side, it increases access to EV charging. It provides more range confidence for employees, and gives them access to free or discounted charging. So now to introduce fourth solution to workplace charging issues, we have the Electric Vehicle Adoption Leadership Program. And we have a certification platform, which we also call EVAL. And EVAL is a certification program that provides technical assistance and recognition to organizations that support the adoption of clean transportation. EVAL certification indicates the availability of clean transportation options and opportunities for staff at a workplace. Next slide. Our goal is to execute a nationwide workplace charging program consisting of education, outreach, and technical assistance activities that enable a large-scale increase in workplace charging. Our goal is to recognize and certify work sites throughout the US with the goal of catalyzing port installations at workplaces. And ultimately, EVAL distinguishes employers and workplaces by leading the charge to address climate change and lower emissions. So a little bit about eligibility. Employers from all industries and sizes, including state, local, or tribal government entities, community-based organizations, and nonprofits are eligible to apply. We're particularly interested in reaching employees in sustainability, HR, and facilities management positions. So the certification process is really straightforward. You follow a few easy steps, and we're also able to help you out throughout your application process. If you have any questions, we're able to support. So first, you'll create an account and register your organization by completing a key information section. You'll apply for EVAL certification by filling out the questionnaires. And then you'll have access to digital resources and templates to help you successfully create a workplace charging program and navigate that questionnaire. And then you'll have the option to connect with Forth for additional support. After that, you'll submit your application, which will be reviewed by Forth staff, and then you'll receive your certification and get recognized. So the registration process is really easy. You answer a few questions about yourself and your organization to get started. You talk about your role. Oh, sorry, you can go on to the next slide. And the EVAL program offers 4 tiers of certification. We have bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, depending on the level of certification points a workplace achieves. Certification includes a variety of resources, and employers can gain certification points by filling out the questionnaire that assesses their efforts towards promoting clean transportation at their workplace and supporting employees to travel sustainably. This can include the availability of EV charging, options for carpooling, biking and public transportation, as well as incentives for sustainable employee commuting. The certification is made up of 5 sections, ranging from 5 to 10 questions each. Section 1 focuses on employee engagement and the understanding of employee needs. Section 2 focuses on the planning and evaluation for your workplace charging program. Section 3 centers on e-mobility incentives, and this category allows employers who do not have their own parking facilities to earn points and reach a certification level. And section 4 is the largest section, which focuses on expanding access to EV charging stations. Finally, the last section, section 5, allows employers to showcase their sustainability leadership through innovation and regional programs with 2 more open-ended questions. And an organization is also able to certify multiple locations and work sites through our single application process for multiple locations. So let's say you're a business with 10 separate locations that you want to certify. You can certify each site individually through this application that allows you to plug in for multiple sites. So how much does it cost? Right now, the eval certification fee is waived until October of 2024. And after November 1st, a fee will be implemented to certify each location. And it is a lifetime certification that does not require recertification. And so we're here really trying to encourage people to apply before you have to pay the fee. And as an eval certified employer, you'll receive a variety of perks and recognition, including access to an exclusive roundtable group, a spotlight on the eval website, multimedia promotions from Forth and partners, and a written profile and case study for our platinum organizations. You'll also receive a digital badge with a signed certificate. Next slide. As an eval certified employer, you'll also get access to a variety of technical assistance, such as helping out with webinars. We can support template surveys and forms. We can provide local providers and installers for you, employee education resources, best practices, and more. So going back to Charge at Work, we also provide tools, resources, and technical assistance and ways in which we can help. Similar to eval, we can connect you with local incentive programs, create a site plan, identify which technologies can work best for you, and gauge worker interest in EVs. Jumping back into eval statistics, where we're at now, we have 172 work sites certified, including universities, cities, and major utilities. We have 39 work sites that are platinum certified and 54 work sites that are gold certified. So we're really excited about all of our partners who have been certified. Our community of certified sustainability leaders is growing, and we're really excited for you to be a part of it. Members include a number of cities and municipalities, like we saw on the previous slide, and again, employers from all industries and sizes are eligible to apply. So what's next? You can join our webinar series. We have a number of them coming up throughout finishing out August and then into September. We also have technical assistance resources that are available to you through the eval certification website. You can start your own eval certification process, and you can also sign the Charge at Work pledge. And I have my colleague Brandon available to help answer questions. I know we're also tight on time, but I'll let Brandon help answer any questions. And then we also have our contact information here if you do want to reach out to us.
Okay, so we're going to start our Q&A. We only have a couple minutes left, unfortunately. But Barry and Brianna, if you could turn your cameras on and we'll go through a couple of the questions. I did notice that you did answer your questions in the Q&A chat. So thank you for doing that. We were going to do a live session, but thank you for doing that with the time. And so I hope all of the participants can see their questions answered. If you do click on the Q&A, you should be able to see the question and then the answer that Brianna and Barry both typed. So we'll go ahead though, just to get a little discussion going in the last couple minutes. We do have a couple questions that weren't answered. So Brianna, we have a question for you. Are your programs supported by ratepayers, or does Hingham have a demand charge?
So we don't have a demand charge, and we've generally seen support from ratepayers on the projects. The stations have been used over 4,000 times since they were installed a couple of years ago, and we've had 813 unique drivers use those stations. And because ever since we've installed the level 3 stations especially, this has started to turn into a real revenue generating opportunity. And so that has generated more good faith with the ratepayers. The grants that we received made it so that we were able to install the stations at little to no cost to the ratepayers. So that makes it very easy to justify getting this amenity in place. But I think that the revenue that the stations have been generating and the fact that they're operating when people get there to use them has been sustaining that project support that we've gotten. And any negative feedback that we have gotten, a few comments, is just mostly from a lack of education on our part and just communicating where funds came from for the stations and how they work. And things like that. So we found that as we work more with that education and outreach program, Hingham Drives Electric, that we mostly just get positive feedback on it.
Great. Thank you so much. That was an interesting question. Okay, here's a question for Barry. For future workplace expansion, how did you determine the number of chargers to install?
We undersized it, unfortunately. I did answer that, but I would say it would be nice to triple it. I tell people now to immediately consider and electrify 20 of their parking spots. So if you've got 100 of them at your office building, you should have conduit out there for 20 of them. If you're ever digging up the parking lot, I would say now double it for the next 5 years to look at 40% of the parking spots. As you know, we work on this other program with multi-unit dwellings where we're trying to get new construction, bring 240 volts to every parking spot. You don't have to necessarily put the station in right now, but having the power there while things are wide open, it's just so much more efficient to do it that way. I even though I'm in the industry, I didn't anticipate how quickly it was going to grow. I think in New York State now we're at 6% new car sales. We'll probably hit 10% this year being EVs. And you should know that there are mandates in many states as to when dealers can only sell zero emission vehicles. I think it's 2035 or 2037 in different states. And that's going to come up on us pretty quickly.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, great information. Okay, just to respect everyone's time in our audience, we're just going to ask this last question. Brianna, related to your presentation and one of your slides, what were the issues that came up that required your request for extension?
It was mostly RFP timing, so having to issue the request for proposals after we got the approval for the grant ended up taking more time. We weren't sure what to issue, so we had to create the RFP, and we didn't do that before we got the approval. So thinking about like if you submit for a grant, then prepare in anticipation of getting that grant, and then being prepared to hit the ground running the day you get it was helpful. Supply chain also made that a challenge. So in a couple of the projects, we had issued the RFP after a month or so of getting that grant, but then the supply chain delays took a lot longer than anticipated. And so that we just had to go back and request the extensions on those.
Great. Okay, well, we did have some really great questions, and it looks like we're out of time. So I just want to thank everyone for the great webinar and your presentations. Up next, we have another webinar on August 29th for nonprofits and remote employers. You can go to the website and see who our great speakers are. Also, Christine has put a SurveyMonkey link into the chat. So we would love for you to give us some feedback. Let us know what you learned, what you thought was great, and some of your ideas for another webinar. And again, here are our speakers' emails. My email also, you can email me anytime with questions. And also, I'm sure you might have some more questions for our speakers. And again, we just want to thank you. Thank you for attending. And the recording will be up and on our website for playback if you want to listen to some of those great presentations. And thanks again to our speakers. Thank you for answering all those questions in the chat. We did get some good questions, so we had some good interest from our audience.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And Christine, you can stop the recording.